I'll introduce myself in a minute, and I'm going to pull up some slides that I'm going to share on the ESG. But while I do so, let's start to get your fingers warmed up if you don't mind. Perhaps you put in the chat, when I say the S of ESG, the social side, what word or phrase comes to mind? What's top of mind on the subject? All right, what do we have? Impacts. Yes, I hope so. Values. Interesting, David. Thank you. Contribution to communities. Yes, we are definitely going to be digging into all of those three. Staff. Yep. Your employees. We're also going to be digging into that today. Welcome, Katie Morrison. Comes to your mind, Katie, when we say the S of ESG? And anyone else that's just joined? Any other words, phrases that come to mind? Community from Jeff. Anything else? All right, well, I'll let you carry on the chat. And I'm going to say to Connor and to everyone else, if you have any questions while I'm going through, this doesn't need to be just me talking. Feel free to pop something in the chat. Connor, if you would just keep an eye on the chat. And if there are any questions that are pertinent to what I'm doing at the moment, please interrupt me. We will have some time for Q&A at the end, so feel free also to keep it for the end. If you're able to say to the end, we will not go over time. We'll finish promptly today. But if there's something that's like, well, I want to ask this now before she moves on, then I won't be able to see all of you. So please feel free just to interrupt and get your question in there. This doesn't need to be one way. Inclusion, Katie, and relationships. Andrew, great. Well, we're definitely going to be focusing on all of the above and more on the SVSG. So welcome. I know some of you have met me before and some of you I am new. So I'm Mahala Beckett and I lead ESG, sustainability consultancy at Connect 3. I'm very passionate about supporting businesses to grow in a sustainable way. And as a background, I'm actually an economist by background. I worked in international development, so very much on the people side of looking at poverty and inequality. That's my background. I also led Intrepid Travel for a few years, based in Africa. So I've run four businesses and hopefully had as much social impact as I possibly could, as well as looking after the planet through that travel company. I am a trained B Corp consultant, so that's something I'll be touching on today a little bit. And with two other businesses, I co-chair the Scotland communities of B Corps, which are businesses that are using their businesses for social and environmental good. And I'm a professional business and leadership coach. So that's me. Connect 3, well, we are a people and business consultancy and we support leaders to build healthy businesses that are great places to work. So we do a lot of work on helping businesses to grow, looking at where they are, their strategy and vision, their purpose and values, and helping them to grow and change with various leadership support and coaching. We are people first, so this S of ESG is really our bread and butter. We help a lot of people with their HR, with feedback, manager, leader training, and high performing teams. But what I'm kind of concentrating on today is that future work life bit. So we are running an ESG consultancy support, which I'm leading, and we're also building up our EDI consultancy, so equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we also do quite a lot of work with companies on innovation and company culture. So you're very strong in our company on the S of ESG and building and progressing and learning every day. So we're going to be focusing a lot on that future work life today. So we're on a mission to make people and the planet a better place, both to live and to work. That's our mission at Connect 3. And we've worked with a whole host of companies in Glasgow, in Scotland, across the UK and internationally. And we're really proud to be a living wage employer, investors in people, good business charter. And these are all the things that we celebrate and we like to collect to show that we really are practicing what we preach. And 2 years ago, we became B Corp certified, which shows that we are demonstrating very high standards, maybe not the highest, but high standards in terms of how we look after our people, how we look after the planet, how we look after our communities, how we provide value to our customers, and how we set up our governance structures as a company. So we are always learning, we're always progressing, and we like to share that with the other companies that we work with. Um, so today we are focusing on the S of ESG. So this is what I'd like to think that you would come away with. If you've got any other learning outcomes, feel free to put them in the chat and I'll make sure I address those too. So some knowledge. So what social impact is, the benefits, both to yourself and to the company and to your wider stakeholders, barriers to working on it, and perhaps some opportunities. I'd like to spark some ideas in you. Which areas might be most impactful, most material to you as a business, so how you can support both your people, the planet, and your profitable business going forward. And given that knowledge and ideas, some confidence to actually make a start on increasing the social impact that your business provides. So that's what I'd like you to get out of it. If there's anything else that you would like to come away with, then do let me know. So I said I would get your fingers warmed up. We're going to play a game of true or false. Don't be shy, these are just a bit of fun. But some questions to get you just your ideas going, your ideas sparked. So a T or an F in the chat, if you will. Question number one. Businesses' social conduct rarely affects consumer purchasing decisions. Is that true? That a business social conduct rarely affects consumer purchasing, or is it false? What do you think? False, 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 false. Lots of Fs. False, false, false. Any more false? Anyone want to be controversial? All falses. Okay. Well, should we see what we've got? False. So 2/3 or 66% of consumers say that even if they love a company's products or services, they will boycott that company if that company does something wrong or does something offensive. And this is from Porter Novelli's Business of Cancer Culture study back in 2021. Hopefully they're updating it. And I'm sure that probably moved on even further. And just out of interest, the sorts of subjects they asked about in terms of doing something wrong. The top one was racial justice, then women's rights, COVID-19 protocols. You can see the time that this was done in immigration, climate change and the environment, LGBTQ plus, and religion and politics. These are all the issues that people thought if something was done wrong in those areas, something was said offensively, even if they loved a company's products or services, 2/3 of them said that would be it, not use this company anymore. So consumers do care, not all of them, but a vast majority. All right, question two. A company that leads with purpose is building a trusted brand. True or false? What do we think? Oh, just give trying to find the chat. True, true, true. True, 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 true. Again, making these questions too easy for you this week, aren't I? Any more takers? All right. You may have already seen the answer, but you're right, true. So this is from Peter Novelli's Purpose Perception Study back in 2021, and participants were asked this question. And 4 stats I've pulled out: 78% people are more likely to want to work for that company if it's led by purpose, 76% are more likely to trust that company, 72% are more likely to be loyal to that company, keep buying from it, and 72% are more likely to forgive that company of a misstep. Because remember, not every company can be perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to do better when we know better, and we're all human, but more likely to be forgiven if generally the company is purpose-led, which I think is interesting. All right, one more question. 90% of surveyed consumers believe companies have a positive impact on society. What do you think about that? Is that true or is that false? False, 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 false. Any idea what percentage that might be if you think it's false? 30 from David, good guess. 50 from Andrew, 25 from Katie, 33 question mark from 30 from Andrew. So we think it's much lower, perhaps third to a half, or a quarter to a half, 40%, Elizabeth, 40%. Should we have a look? 45 from Lucy. All right, some good guesses. False. Oh, someone was very close. So only 49% of those surveyed believe that companies have a positive impact on society. And actually was down from 58% in 2018. Again, this survey is now 2 years old, so hopefully they'll be repeating it this year and we can see if that's gone up or not. I'd like to think it's gone up, but we'll see. Consumers have also become more discerning. So I just wanted to demonstrate from that social impact is not irrelevant to consumers, to workers, to building a brand, to building a great place to work. And there's increasingly more stats on what impact this might have. But shall we go into a little bit of the detail? So just for anyone that hasn't been to the last two webinars, what is ESG? Well, it's about the environment, it's about social impact, and it's about good governance. And we have already dug into the environment. We did that a couple of weeks ago. Replay is available and on the IoD website on YouTube. And we talked about climate resilience and adaptation. We talked about use of land and water and natural resources. We went a little bit into energy, carbon, and net zero plans. We pulled into that some waste and circular business models and life cycle assessments. We dipped into those things. So if you want to catch up on the environment, that is on YouTube and available. I'm sure Connor can send the link out after this. And a lot of people think about ESG and think about the environment, but there's two huge other subjects that we need to pull into that. So people, the social side, people play a huge part in looking after our planet, right? And making sure that we have a planet there for the future which people will enjoy. And governance is super important because it's all about the way that you set up your business for success and maintain it. So we will be dipping into governance in the last webinar on November 16th. And these are all the subjects that we will tap into, and I will be pulling out and majoring on a couple of these. So all around business vision and purpose, your business model, your boards and your leadership, how you make decisions, how to assess what's material to you in terms of what you take action on, your strategy, including your sustainability strategy, and how you measure, report, and be transparent about the social and environmental impact you want to have. So hold your horses for the 16th, and that should be a really interesting session. But today, we're going to be focusing on social impact. Now, there's an awful lot that I could have included today, all around the customer, around employees, around your supply chain, and around giving back and advocacy. So lots of subjects, and this is the model that Connect 3 have pulled together to show that to become a sustainable business, to be future fit into the future, we really need to be looking at sustainability really holistically. So that's including your impact on the environment, the impact on people, and how you set yourself up for success, your governance. And these are all the subjects that we'll be working with you on over these four workshops. But today we're going to be focusing on social impact. And I wanted to pull out four major stakeholders here. What I haven't got here is your investors. Which is really important because we need to be being profitable so that we can invest in the other stakeholders. But I won't be delving into maximizing your profit today. That's hopefully something you guys are already good at. And if you're not, then let's think of a way to make sure that by working with your other stakeholders, your customers, your employees, and your supply chain, your community, that you're also keeping your investors, your directors happy. So they're the four stakeholders we're going to be going to today. And I'm going to delve slightly into three of them and do a little bit more on the employees. And please do ask me questions as we're going along. I can't see many of you in this view, but nice to see some of you still got your videos on. Feel free to just ask questions as we're going along or pop them in and you can let me know. So the first stakeholder group has to be a customer, right? You are all in business for a reason. Now you're all in business to make money, to make a profit. That's going to be one of your prime reasons for being there. And the way that you do that is to create value out there in the world, is to provide something that someone, whether it be a consumer or another business, finds valuable and is willing to exchange money for you. So you have to have customers. This is going to be for everyone. It might be a customer, it might be a client, and you might be actually serving your clients, your customers. But you are here to provide value for another set of people that are paying you for your products or for your services. And there's a good chance that you are solving at least a small social or economic or environmental problem for those customers or their customers, perhaps. If you were going to increase the social impact of your business, I'd love you to have a think about what social problems you could be being part of the solution for and not just part of the problem. So does your product or service increase access to basic needs for anyone? And by basic needs could mean shelter, could mean, could be working as a housing association, perhaps. Do you increase access to, we've got one company I'm working with that provides portaloos for festivals. So that's access to a basic need. And off the back of that, actually supports sanitation in the global south as part of its business model, a one-for-one model. So that's a great example. Are you using your business to improve health or education outcomes? Are you educating consumers on businesses on something valuable? Are you preserving culture? I've got a client we're working with that does small print runs for organizations that wouldn't otherwise be able to get their voice out into the community, be able to have their voice heard, the advocacy groups out there. Are you there to support social businesses? How do you support perhaps nonprofits and social enterprises? Do you have a tiered model of pricing? Are you able to tackle something like homelessness through your business? So there's a great company in Glasgow called the Blank Faces. They sell t-shirts and shorts and hoodies. But as part of that, they also employ homeless people. They also give donations to homeless charities, and they actually have a food bank in their shop to go that little bit further. Companies like BetterHelp are here to provide more access to people who want to work on their mental health, who maybe wouldn't otherwise be able to access counsellors, to make it easier for people to get support. And Connect 3 itself, as a service provider, supports businesses on all sorts of things, including EDI, diversity, inclusion, and equity. So we're providing social impact in the world by supporting businesses to support their employees better. So have a think about, are there social problems you touch on? Are there ways you could support your customers better by increasing access to basic needs, increasing access to information, looking after their health better, or really starting to work on some of the big social issues of today? So that's one way that you might be producing really good social impact for your customers or your consumers, or perhaps their customers or consumers. Do you actually solve an economic problem with your business? Are you able to provide finance or insurance or markets to either people or businesses that otherwise wouldn't be able to transact, wouldn't be able to get loans, wouldn't be able to get insurance? So maybe an example of this is Triodos Bank and Charity Bank, lowering the bar for organizations to get loans, get access to finance. Do you support underserved customers to get into your market? Do you perhaps advertise yourself and make consumers who wouldn't normally access your services more aware of it? Do you have a tiered pricing system? Do you have discounts for NHS and students? Do you have discounts for SMEs perhaps, or for non-profits? Is there a way that by you providing your service, you are supporting people and businesses that otherwise would struggle to make a business, to make a career for themselves, actually have better access to a good source of living? That's something else to think about. And then even if you are not in business to directly solve a social problem or an economic problem, customer stewardship is going to be important for everyone. So how are you looking after your customers? The value you are providing to them, are you providing a quality product? Do you have any certifications? Have any rigorous procedures to make sure that every product or service goes out there is going to be really impactful and really, really high quality? They might be external qualifications, or they might be just internal checks and balances to make sure that all your services go out to a certain standard, or your products go out. Do your products go out safe? Do you have safety certifications to make sure that you're looking after the welfare of your customers? Security, are you keeping your customer data safe and secure? And it might even be, are your products safe and secure, depending on what you're dealing with? Ethics, so are you communicating to potential customers and actual customers in an ethical way? Are you looking after the data properly? And then obviously customer satisfaction, you are in business to provide value to your customers. So are they happy? Are they happy with your product or service? Are they happy with the customer service? Are you reading that customer satisfaction? Are you actually using it to input into future product or service design? And are you improving that satisfaction? Are you being transparent about where you're displaying it so that other customers can make an informed decision about using your quality product? And finally, what's the impact of that customer using your product or service? So yes, they might be 4 out of 5 stars satisfied with your product, but what actually is going on after they've consumed product or service? Are they healthier? Are they happier? Is their life better in some way? That might not be practical for all consumers to report back to you, or for all companies to actually report on. But have a think about what are the longer term outcomes you would love in your customers in using your product or service, and how might you start thinking about setting objectives around that, measuring, even if it's qualitatively chatting to your customers, like what impact did this have on your life and how could we make it better? So even if you're not solving the big social and economic problems of today, you're at least getting some really great outcomes out of the customers you're serving. So I don't know whether anyone's got any questions, insights around what I've shared on the customer side, or any good examples of great companies that are doing good things in this area. Before I move on, I can't see the chat. Connor, if there is anything, feel free to let me know.
No problem, will do.
No, no good for now. Cool. All right. Well, if you've got any questions on how you can provide more value to your customers, then feel free to jump in at the end. That should be relevant for everyone on some level. All right, so now we're going to go to the community, and a few of you mentioned community in terms of what social impact means for you. So there are lots of ways that you can benefit broader stakeholders. So we've got one internal stakeholder, you've got your employees, we've got another stakeholder group which you kept separate, which is your customer, and this is everyone else that touches your business. So that might be your local community. It might be community groups that you're part of globally. It might be your supply chain. It might be your industry groups. These are all elements of community, and there may be others, but they're probably the main ones. So there are several ways that you can support your local community. I've pulled out 3 roughly, and they can all blow and integrate really nicely. So first of all, financial donations. If you are a going concern as a company, if you are profitable, then you have cash to invest in all sorts of social and environmental impact, which is great. One of the ways you might consider having more impact is aligning yourself with a cause that you believe in, cause that aligns with your organization, might be more than one. You can give financial donations from your company. And best practice here would be not just to ad hoc sponsor the odd thing, give the odd money at Christmas, actually to have a strategy around it. So have a think about, well, if I'm going to give money to some organization, who should it be? Who would it make sense for it to be, given perhaps my values or interests as a founder, perhaps what my team is interested in, perhaps what's local to us, and what impact we'd actually like to have. So something a bit strategic, not just we'll donate something to Crisis at Christmas and we'll sponsor this run for the cat's home in the summer. Actually, so to give an example, Connect 3's founder is an artist. He's very passionate about art, and he just doesn't get to use it too much in his day job. But he's aligned Connect 3 with an organization called Projectability, and they basically provide community arts centre for adults with learning disabilities and issues with ill mental health. So not only has he aligned his organization with a charity that helps him to get into art, and he's certainly bought quite a lot of art for the office for that, but he also supports a people charity, which is something that's very aligned with Connect 3 and being inclusive and supporting opportunities for people that might otherwise fail to have access to. And not only does Connect 3 give financial donations there, but we also go in and we do some pro bono work in there. So he sits on their board. We've done strategy sessions for them pro bono. So our employee volunteering hasn't, again, been ad hoc. It's been in organizations which we support not only financially, but strategically, and with some hands-on action. So thinking about how you can use any giving back, any financial donations or community actions to be aligned with what you want to do and the outcomes you want to see. And we want to make the world a better place to live and to work. And that means supporting opportunities for everyone to live their best life. So that's a charity which really well aligns with us. And it's always good when you're giving money to charity that you do your due diligence. Is this an organisation that's going to spend the money well, that's going to report on how it's spent? And ideally, it's going to look at what actually impact it's going to have. So if Connect 3 are interested in supporting a more inclusive world, we would love to see that the money we're giving, the time we're giving, and the advice we're giving on their board is actually going to increase inclusion, increased well-being of people that might have not otherwise been able to enter in some of the activities that they do at Projectability. So have a think about, well, if we're going to be giving money or time, what's the impact we actually want to have? So being a bit more strategic about that and aligning it with either your founder's mission or your company mission. That's something that's will support you to be more impactful rather than ad hoc about what you do. And so same goes with employee volunteering. It's really nice to ask your team, what would you like to get involved in? That certainly helps with the employee engagement, which we'll mention later. Our client experience manager runs a food bank. And certainly Connect 3 have been supporting her and doing some volunteering there. And obviously that supports her on her giving back days. And that's something that companies can support. Would we like to give paid days that people are able to support charities that they're really passionate about or that align with the company in general? And ideally, some pro bono work so that people aren't just doing anything, they're actually using their skills, provide really good support for other organizations that they believe in. And along with community action, if you've got a space, if you've got a physical office, how can you share it with the community? At Connect 3, we've had various events in our office space. We've got a big training space. So, it's a great asset that we can use to share with the local community. And we've certainly hosted B Corp socials, brought other businesses or interested businesses that want to learn more about the sustainability certification. And we've shared food and wine and given them more information on that. So have a think about how could you use your office space to support the community more widely. And then finally, something maybe you don't think about so much is advocacy. So if you're doing good things for the environment, good things for your people, if you are being a good industry player, then get out there in your industry and talk about it. Share what's worked, what hasn't worked, lessons learned, encourage other people in your industry or your local community to be better as a business. You might be able to provide some data. So I've got one client in Uganda that's providing data on minimum wage so they can set up a living wage for the country. You may be able to provide research. I've got another client that is that runs a disability consultancy, and he's providing evidence in Parliament to support some new environmental legislation around disability, which is brilliant. How can you lobby government so that every industry, every company has to do better? What are you passionate about? So it might be about what you do, it might be about what you give, and it might just be about what you share and encourage wider, because we're all in this together. We all want to have a better place to live and to work. So how can you share the good practice and from others and be an advocate in your industry? That's what I wanted to share on community. Are there any questions, comments, insights, good companies you're aware of? Anyone want to share what you're doing on the community area?
We do have a question from David Garrick. He's asking any advice on choosing what kind of community support is most suitable for business and for community?
Good question. Well, the first thing I would say is, well, as a founder, as a leader of a business, have a think what you're passionate about and how you want to personally have an impact wider than creating economic value in the world. And then if you have a team, go and chat to your team. Why are they happy to work for you and what would make them even happier? What causes are closest to their heart? And then have a look at your community. If you're in an area of high homelessness, or you can feel the cost of living crisis is really dire, or you can see that your green spaces in the natural area aren't great, then see how you can put your skills and experience and time to best use. It might be that giving money to something that's already set up in the community is the most impactful thing to do. It might be there's no one already providing that, and you can actually get stuck in. I've got quite a lot of clients that when they've got to a certain stage have set their own foundations, which is probably another step. But I think just talking about it and figuring out what would be best in terms of who you're working for and what skills you have. But yeah, great question.
We have a couple more. I'll read out one from Paul. Is measuring impact tricky? I always worry that it can be difficult to track the difference that you've made.
Yes, it can be. And I would say don't let that put you off thinking what good would look like for you, because you can track inputs, so you can track what you put into it as a start point, how much money you gave, or how many hours you volunteered for, how many events you spoke at. Then you can track the outputs. I spoke to 50 businesses. That organization put 50 entrepreneurs through a course, or we served 40 homeless people at a shelter. And then the outcomes can be the tricky thing, which is why, I mean, this will bias you probably towards giving to bigger charities, not smaller ones. So I don't want to say this is necessarily always the best way to go. There are quite a lot of larger charities that you can look at, various online comparison sites now, which show that how well they actually track their longer term outcomes. So as an example, I give 5% of my income to something called the Hunger Project because I'm really passionate about poverty and inequality in the global south and especially women empowerment. So I know that the money I gave last year, I know how much money I gave to the Hunger Project. I know what the equivalent of that bought. And I think it put something like 47 women through an entrepreneurial program in India, for example. And I know that I know the percentage of women that go through that have set up a business. That's not necessarily the exact entrepreneurs that I funded, but at least the charity I'm giving to does report longer term outcomes. So this year we put 50 women through, and now 50% of them have got thriving businesses with at least 12 chickens or whatever it might be. So you can look into it. But start at least with the inputs, then look at the outputs, and then have a look, think of the outcomes. Some of the smaller charities might struggle a bit with that, but if there's nothing around the impact reporting what they're doing with their money, then I would say maybe look for somewhere with a bit more transparency and accountability. I don't know if that helps.
Thank you. No, that was great. We have one more question from Elizabeth. We have an employee volunteering scheme, but struggle to get employees to take this up. Any advice to help with this?
Yeah, I know. I hear this a lot. I guess one thing is about being realistic with targets. And sometimes you need to try things before you know what a realistic target is. I have some firms that said we're going to give 1 day a month, and that's 12 days, and then like people are just too busy. So being realistic with a target in terms of workload and what volunteering might be, making it easy for people to actually do it. So some people will love to are already volunteering, like our experience manager with the food bank. So she doesn't find it hard to do volunteering because she's already fully into it. So either letting people do whatever they want to volunteer for, or actually providing, here, we're having a volunteering day, who wants to come along? And then the third thing I would say is, like, these things, they've got to be role modeled from the top of the company. So if the founder or the leader or the MD isn't taking their 5 days of volunteering leave, that makes it really, like, it's really hard to ask employees to do it. And if they're not taking it, then have a question whether we've got the charity right, time commitment right, or we made it as easy as possible. So I'd probably look into those three things if that's helpful.
That's great, thanks. And we've got one more. I think it's a comment from Andrew. He says, we did use a great platform that matched our team's skill sets with social businesses and charities that matched their interests, and they were allocated work time to spend and encouraged to take part. But unfortunately, sorry, I should have read ahead. This platform is now closed, so they're figuring something new out. But it seems like you can get tools that help you with factoring this in.
There are, I mean, I'm happy to share a list later, but there are a number of organisations that have set up to match businesses with volunteering opportunities. There's a IoD Scotland organisation. Yeah, there are all sorts of platforms. Obviously, they all cost something, but again, you've got to think about, well, what investment do I want to put in this, and how important is it to me, and how can we make it useful? So if people aren't volunteering, find out why, and dig into that, and maybe start small. Start with a couple of days a year and build up. Or maybe there's just a better way that people want to get involved, and that's okay too. Okay, great. Well, if there are any more questions on community, then feel free to, we've got time for questions at the end, no problem. A small one, but I wanted to include them. Suppliers. So we, dug into a little bit on suppliers on the E of ESG, because it's quite good to find out what suppliers' environmental credentials are. But we can also think about this in terms social impact space. So I guess three things to mention here. Most of us, especially the larger our companies get, aren't really clear where we're spending our money and who we're bringing on and how we're bringing them onto our procurement platform or our supplier list. So first of all, to think about is to go to our supply chain and actually check with them. Hopefully, we're screening them for some kind of compliance, that they are a genuine company and that they're reporting, they're legitimate. But we could be screening them for social and environmental standards. So, do these companies pay minimum wage, living wage? Are they looking after their workforce? Are they set up in a transparent way? Could we have a code of conduct which we ask all of our suppliers to sign up to? Are they all signing up to it? Do they manage to fall down the cracks? So who are we supplying to right now, and what kind of companies have we got in there? And then before we think about improvement, it's really a case of like, well, how are we doing as a company ourselves? Because what we can't ask our suppliers to do is anything more than we've done. So we shouldn't be screening for paying living wage if we don't pay living wage ourselves. If we have 0 hour contracts in our company, then we can't really be screening or encouraging our partners to do so. So one thing I say, get your own house in order, and then maybe have to think about what might be your red lines or your minimum standards for new suppliers onto your board. Will it be from now on we only really want suppliers that are paying living wage, or that are looking after their employees, whether they're making clothes in Bangladesh or they're making hoovers in Bristol? What are our minimum standards and what are our nice to have? What would be our preferences for purchasing? And how can we work with our suppliers that we already have to say, perhaps in the next year or two, we'd really like you to be better on this. For us to carry on working with you, we'd like to support you to be moving to a living wage employer, support you to move off 0 hour contracts, support you to whatever is important to you. But say get your own house in order. And perhaps if there are some suppliers that are not going to move into being in alignment with your own values, I know someone mentioned values earlier, is it a chance to look for other suppliers which perhaps are more in line with the social impact you want to have in the world? If you want to make sure that everyone, not just in your organization, but across your supply chain, is being well looked after, or is measuring their emissions, or has got 0 waste targets, whatever is important to you, then how can you provide resources, workshops, share information, preferential deals? Perhaps you pay all suppliers on time within 30 days if they pay their staff living wage, as an example. So what's your baseline? What would you like to have in terms of your supplier community? And then finally, like, how are you using your procurement budget as a force for good to have social impact? So again, it all depends what's important to you, but how can you provide access to the market for suppliers that maybe otherwise wouldn't have been able to? Do you work with any cooperatives? Do you work with any providers in the global south that would struggle to supply to you otherwise, or struggle to provide to a bigger company? Do you support women-led companies, minority-owned companies, companies in rural areas, or perhaps low-income areas where you can boost that local economy by buying from them? So don't underestimate how your purchasing budget can actually support some of your values and some of your mission in terms of social impact. And that's all I wanted to say on that, but I don't know whether any has any questions or comments, thoughts.
Don't think, no, not yet at the moment, but I'll let you know if anything pops up.
It's kind of great. All right then. Now I want to to a chunkier section. Now, as a people and business consultancy, there's lots we could talk about employees, and I'm sure we will in the future. And I think actually we'll be having a whole range of webinars on EDI with the IoD in future, run by my colleague Katie, who I think is on the call. So we will be digging way more into EDI. But I picked out 3 things I want to touch on today: employee engagement, employee wellbeing, and equity, diversity, and inclusion. So if I start with engagement, so how engaged are your employees? Your people are your biggest assets, right? If you look after your people, they will look after your customers, and your customers will look after your profitability, and you'll be able to stay a going concern into the future. How are you keeping your employees engaged at work? Are you providing feedback in terms of the value they're adding to the organization? Are you supporting them to grow and to learn and to get better? And are you providing opportunities for them to provide you feedback on how you're doing, how you could be better, so they become a part of the company growing in a sustainable way? In terms of consultation, when you're making operational decisions, perhaps moving office, something like that, or a strategic decision, perhaps launching a new product or a new service, how are you including your employees on those decisions? Is it just made by a founder or by a board or a senior leadership team? Or do you go back to the wealth of the people in your company and say, what do you think? What ideas do you have? And that really helps people to feel engaged, like they have a voice at work and they're part of the future success. In terms of kind of complaint procedures, is it ad hoc? Can people only go to their manager? Are you providing different routes, different people that employees can speak to if they've got concerns at work? Confidential hotlines, perhaps someone in the HR department, perhaps someone directly on the board that someone can go and speak to if they've got an issue. That's really important for people to feel safe and heard at work. And then you can go as far as something like employee ownership. How much of your company is owned by employees? How much do they have both a say and are rewarded by the company doing well? And how can you engage people by things like share ownership? So lots more we could talk about in terms of engagement. And I guess you're only going to start to perhaps do confidential surveys on engagement when your company gets to a certain size. And hopefully for some of you, you're doing that. And some of you, perhaps it's a bit more ad hoc if you're a smaller company. But if you are going to be doing something like an employee engagement survey, which is really good practice to be anonymous, to have everyone's voice heard, it's really important that you are reading that, you are taking it on board, you are discussing that, and that you are actually taking action on it to actually move the company forward in a way that people are really happy for you to be doing so. So engagement, really, really important. And then looking after the well-being of your employees. So we can talk about financial well-being. Are you paying living wage? Are you paying competitive rates? Do people feel valued financially? Are people included in bonus schemes when the company is doing well? In terms of health, how are you looking after physical and mental health of your employees? Do they have access to perhaps fitness challenges, gym memberships, time for yoga at lunchtime? Do they have access to counselling, to employee assistance? And again, you have to talk to your staff what they need and what they want and what they would love from you. And are you working them are you working them too many hours? Are they able to have time for rest and relaxation outside of work hours? Are you keeping them safe at work? And are you providing career development? Are they going somewhere at work? Are they feeling good about being invested in, supported, and in line with where they want to go in terms of their career, so they can stay with you for a long time? And what I'd like to share with you via the wellbeing is Connect 3's Thrive model. So how you can support your employees to thrive at work and make sure you've got a happy and a healthy and thriving culture at work. Now, I will start at the bottom. So first of all is taking care of yourself. So as a founder, as a leader, as a director, really, really important for you to look after yourself. And I said, you've got to lead these changes. If you're not volunteering, your staff probably aren't going to see it as important. If you're not looking after yourself, then how can you expect your staff to? So showing that you can be successful in business and look after yourself, take care of yourself, put your oxygen mask on first. I say that to any employee, but especially as a director of a company, that's really important to show that's really important. Are you making healthy choices in terms of health, in terms of what you eat and what you exercise? But also in terms of things that really make a difference long term, that it's not just short fixes to look after yourself. How are you creating an environment at work that people are able to be healthy in their work and outside of work? In terms of relationships, and this is kind of a two-way thing, really. So people thriving at work in terms of relationships helps them thrive personally, but also when people are thriving personally, when they're looking after themselves and they're being healthy, it puts them in a place of confidence and self-esteem in order to be able to create healthy relationships at work, which then makes the company a better place to work, more innovative, more productive. So how are you supporting people to have happy and healthy relationships with each other at work? And sometimes that starts with the individual and creating ways that work for people to work together. I think in this hybrid model of working, that can be more of a challenge these days when everyone's not in the office together. Be inviting to share stories. Well, what stories are told in your organization? Are they stories of struggle and hustle and getting by, or they're inspiring stories about overcoming challenges and doing well and having a healthy work-life balance? Have a think about how that shapes your culture at work and how you do share about what's going on in your journey, and encouraging other employees to do so. This value we've kind of hinted at already, but not only are you in business to create value in the world, people are in work to create value in the world, right? They want to know that what they're doing is important, what they're doing is valuable, that they play a really important part at work. And it's good for people to share, this is what I'm doing at work, so people know, like, and respect them for what they're up to. And it's just good to create a healthy environment where everyone knows why they're there. That really helps people to thrive at work. And then finally, man, I know what's going on now. How can you get employees excited about the future for the organization? How are you going to be a better business for the world? How are you going to be supporting the world to be a better place through your company and inspire people to thrive at work because they're tapped into your mission? Loads more I can share on that, but I hope that gives you some ideas of how you can perhaps create a happier, healthier place at work. Maybe one or two things that you can work on in your own organization. And kind of the last subject I want to just touch on as a warm up for our next set of webinars is equity, diversity, inclusion. So it's about providing access to opportunities for all, welcoming and celebrating differences and uniqueness, and helping people to feel valued, to feel respected and included at work. And say we'll be delving way more into EDI, but it's about acknowledging and addressing any existing inequalities that you have in your business. And you might need to do some work to figure out what that is. Start talking, start surveying your organization, having a look at what access to opportunities there are and what inequalities you have, and to create a level playing field for everyone. And that will require some consultation. Diversity, so having a look at the range of differences that existed between people, and that might be in all sorts of areas: race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, ability, religion, the list goes on. It's about recognizing that these differences exist, welcoming them, because what makes us unique helps us to be a better team, right? So celebrating that and making sure that we're making the most of the diverse team. And then finally, inclusion. So everyone feels valued, respected, and included, removing any barriers that might exist from people fully participating. I think about the volunteering. Why are some people volunteering and others aren't? Might be good to ask and find out why aren't people contributing in that way? Is it because they can't, because they don't, who knows? Questions to be asked. But it's making sure everyone's got a voice at work and their perspective can be heard, because it not only supports them at work, but it's going to support you as a really great company. And why would you do that? Well, plenty of benefits of being more equal, more diverse, and more inclusive. You're going to provide a much better culture, which is going to keep people much longer. So your retention should improve. And perhaps that's something that you can look at. What is your staff retention like, as well as your engagement? People leaving, why are they leaving? Is there something you could have done to make your workplace a better place to stay in? Attracts and retains a diverse workforce. You widen your talent pool, address recruitment gaps, and so get more diversity in terms of decision making and innovation, improves communication and collaboration, boosting innovation. People start talking to other people in a much more informed way, increase awareness of different perspectives, and allows you to represent your customer base much better. I actually worked for a company that was very male dominated in terms of the board and the senior leadership team, and pretty much all their customers were women. And when they looked at that, they were like, oh, wow, we're making decisions for customers and we don't really have much in common with them. So perhaps if we bring more women into our board, women into our senior leadership team, that might actually get better, because we'll get more diversity in terms of making decisions about our customer base. So that's really, really important in terms of providing value for your ultimate customers and consumers. Anything that reduces discrimination and biases is going to be a much better place to live and work. And if you've got a healthier, thriving place of work, then it's going to do wonders for your reputational image and general success of your organization. So lots of reasons to delve into your EDI and have a think about how representative you are, how diverse you are, and how inclusive you are of the different people that both work for you and would like to work for you. Perhaps before I move on, any questions, thoughts on the employee side in terms of either engagement or well-being or EDI before I kind of start to finish up the webinar? Nothing yet? Feel free to drop them in the chat and we can have a few minutes for questions at the end. No problem. All right, so I mean, we've touched many benefits of creating more social impact through your business. So having higher customer satisfaction and retention, having raving fans, organic growth, opening up new markets and profitability, attracting and retaining your talent, being more productive, more innovative, being more resilient and having more reliable supply chains once you're working with them and getting eyes on, and having thriving communities and local economies, which ultimately are going to be buying from you. So win-win-win for everyone, really, to look after the people close and far from your organization, the people that really matter and material to you as a business. There are barriers to getting started. So one of them is relevance. We don't know how social impact is relevant to our business. I mean, you guys all came along, so hopefully I'm preaching to the converted, but hopefully after today, you've got an idea of maybe which of those areas are more relevant to you and which perhaps are less relevant. Hopefully you've come away with some knowledge of which of the things perhaps are most important to you and which you can make a start on. And then you just need to create some time, right? Because these things are important. Invest some time in getting to know your stakeholders, finding out what's important to them, and finding out how you can be a better business for them in a way that actually supports you to be sustainable business into the future. So hopefully you won't have any inertia and you can take some change. So I'm going to ask you a question. Final question for today. And if Connor wouldn't mind putting the poll up, having listened to those introductions to those 4 main stakeholder groups, I would love you to say, which of these stakeholder groups could your business create more positive social impact for? And it might be all of the above, but is there one in particular which you would like to start taking some action on, create more positive?
All right, answers are coming in. Just a couple more people if they want to answer.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Connor.
We do have a clear leader at the moment, but we'll see.
Okay, interesting. Anyone else left?
I think we just check it against. I think that's about as many as we'll get. Yeah. So
Great, different.
at the top, so with 5 answers, communities being the most popular choice. And after that, we had a couple of people each go for suppliers and customers. And then down below that was employees. And one person said all of the above as well.
Nice, interesting. Does that, if you press submit, does it show up or?
Let me just, sorry, if I click end.
Let's see. I wonder. There we go. Brilliant. Okay, so a good range. All right, so I've sold the community action. That's good to hear. All of the above are important, but you can't take action on everything all at once. So that's great that someone's taken something away from that. Brilliant. All right, so in the last few minutes, we're all in a different place on a ESG journey. And we've been talking about social impact now. So have a think about what is your baseline? Where are you now? We've got an ESG diagnostic that you can take, which asks questions on your social impact as well as your governance and your environmental sustainability. Where are you now? Strategy, where do you actually want to go? How would you like to be a better company for your employees, for the community, for your supply chain, and for your customers? What's your vision? What do you need to take action on? What's a bit of a roadmap to get there? Who needs to be made responsible for it? What support would you like? And how will you know when you're succeeding? What goals, what KPIs can you set? How would you like to use measurement and reporting to hold yourself accountable to helping towards homelessness or to making your employees better and happier at work? How are you going to communicate that impact to build your brand and build that trust? I remember, there was a lot of people that thought way more favorably of companies that led with purpose. So how can you communicate that you are leading with purpose? And Connect 3, we can support you with any of those. And I hope we have done that today, because we're all at different stages. Some of us are struggling and not quite sure why we're not being particularly competitive at the moment, why we've got poor employee engagement, why we've got lots of attrition. Other of us know what we want to do. We just kind of need to get going, and we need a step on what can we make a start on. And other of us are doing really well, but perhaps we're not celebrating it because we're not quite sure if we're doing all the right things, and we're scared of being caught for greenwashing or for social washing. And we'd be happy to support any of you to move on. What I would say is we've got a QR code here, and I'm happy to put it in the chat too. We've got an ESG diagnostic, which will ask you just 16 questions on your governance, on your social impact, and on your environmental progress. And it will tell you how you're doing well now. It will celebrate where you are. I'll also just put it in the chat. That should get you through to it. And it will give you some tips as to what next. And it'd be interesting to see whether those what next are some of the same things that you've come away from today. Is it in your community area? Or are there some other areas in the environment and the governance that you could start to set yourself up for success and to improve your environmental engagement too? So feel free to scan that code or to use the link in the chat. It will take you 7 minutes max, promise, and just give you a good idea as to actual action to take, because we can talk about it all day, but what I really like you to do is take some action on the back of being here. We'd love to support you to make a change together. Feel free to scan this code and book half an hour with me, and I'm happy to chat through how any of this that we've discussed today is going to help you to move your company forward. Not everything here will be material or important to you now. Perhaps we can discuss some next steps which will help you to help us to increase our social impact in the organisation. And that's all I wanted to share today, but if there are any questions, I'm very happy to take them. I'm also aware that we're on time, so if people need to move on,
I think I
then it's been
spotted.
really good to host you today.
I think I spotted one question, Mahal, just from earlier, just as we were finishing another section from David. Any advice on understanding and articulating the net social benefit our business is contributing, finding it hard to weigh up pros and cons for different sorts of activity?
Ooh. Well, I would say experimentation. If I'm going to use one word, what seems to engage your employees and please your customers and actually has genuine impact? But I'd say you've got to try a few things, but make sure it's aligned with your company and who's working for you. Otherwise, probably guaranteed not to put purpose, passion, and energy into it. But yeah, really good question. I'm happy to discuss that further, David.
Sorry, that's great. Thanks. I don't think we have any more questions. We do have one comment from Barry who was saying, as a medical testing business, we moved from reporting on sales numbers, on sales value to numbers of patients tested, which transformed like how the conversation around social impact was going on in the company.
That's lovely. And isn't that much better as an employee to think, well, we supported X hundred people with their health outcomes rather than we made X £1,000. I mean, both are great. But yeah, really great example of how you can turn what you're already doing and celebrate that social impact. I love that. Thank you for sharing.
That's great. I think, yeah, that's all the questions, comments, just a lot of thank you messages as well, Mahala. And thank you from myself as well for your time. It's been very enjoyable, very informative. And yeah, as you've said, we've got the diagnostic tool you can use, and there'll be a follow-up email to this. And then the the governance event coming up on the 16th of November.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the engagement. Nice to see some of you and nice to meet some new names. And I'll see you all soon at the G. Thanks. And thanks, Connor, for hosting.
No problem. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.